As promised, let's go ahead and take a look at how the BLS uses these two formulas right here with all of the data that they have in order to calculate the CPI and the inflation rate. So if you're interested in this, you can go ahead and Google BLS CPI, and they have a press release every single month that you can go ahead and download, and they also have past ones as well. The one that I pulled up is for April 2020, and we noticed that the consumer price index declined 0.8% in April on a seasonally adjusted basis. Over the past 12 months, all items index increased by 0.3%. So on a month-to-month basis, from March to April, we see some type of deflation happening within the United States. But over the past year, we noticed that we have a very, very low rate of inflation, 0.3%. The largest contributor was gasoline. So during this time period, we noticed that, hey, gas prices tanked essentially. And there's a lot of different reasons why that's going to be the case. But as you can see, this is a very, very large document. And the BLS, they do release this every single month. And you're going to notice that, hey, we're going to be using the same exact formulas that we had in order to calculate at those specific numbers. So if we go all the way down right here, where there's going to be a table that we're going to be interested in, and this is going to be table number 1. So how exactly do we get this 0.3% that we saw in terms of what was sort of the summary of the entire press release? So here we have the values of the CPI, what they calculate out. So the cost of the market basket of goods and services, they've already done that calculation, and then divide it against the base year. So as we noted before, the average between 1982 and 84 is the base year right here. So that's why it equals to 100. So how exactly do we get this 0.3 right here? We use the formulas that we just saw in terms of the slide. So they already calculated out the CPI levels for us. So here, 255, 258, 256, these are the CPI values. They've already calculated the cost of a market basket of goods and services for these particular years and divided it through the base period. So in order to get this 0.3, we need to use the inflation rate formula right here. So percentage change in price. We take the CPI in the current year divided by the CPI in the original year times 100 minus 100. So here, in order to go from 2019 to 2020 in April, we take the current period, which is 256.389. We divide it through by the original time period, or the later time period, 255.548. We divide those two numbers. We multiply by 100, subtract out 100, and this is exactly where we're going to get this 0.3. So just go ahead and use this in the calculator right here just to show you that this is going to be the case. We take the 256.389, divide it through by 255.548. We multiply by 100, and then subtract out 100. And that's exactly where we get 0.329%. So they're just having a little bit of rounding right here, but 0.3%, that is the inflation rate that we have from April 2019 to April to 2020. And as you can see right here, they do this inflation rate for every single good and service that they believe that we buy on an everyday basis. So here's food, here's energy. We see energy prices tanking by 17%, so there's a very big decline in energy prices. But compared to food, we notice that food prices have risen over this period of time, and they actually go ahead and break it down even more. So category by category. This is a very large document, almost 40 pages of this sort of data and information. So if we go ahead and take a closer look at food items, we can say that in terms of food, this is all the types of goods and services that we're going to be buying according to what the BLS says. We notice that, hey, white bread, their prices increased by 6.4% in this time period. We notice that all this beef right here, so we notice that uncooked beef roast, uncooked beef steaks, uncooked other beef and veal, their prices increase at a fairly high pace as well. Other pork, including roast steaks and ribs, one of my favorite sort of food items, increased by 13%, so that's a very high rate of inflation. Eggs increased by more than 17% over this time period. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of us eat eggs, and the prices have increased very, very rapidly. But we do notice some declines as well. So if we go further down, this is where the energy comes in. So fuel and oil, they declined in prices by 33%, and we can see the prices reflected in the gas pump during this time period. But as we can see right here, this is exactly what the BLS does. They break down every single one of these goods, every single one of these services and they track the prices for them. And using the formulas that we've already talked about, using the CPI, using the inflation rate, this is exactly where they get these particular numbers. So the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, very, very nice place to work at as well. If you ever want to stare at that computer screen for 10 hours a day, 10 to 12 hours a day, just gathering this type of data, this is the place for you to go ahead and do so. And once again, this is a few of the things that people find interesting. Where did all this data come from? How exactly did they take this data and provide information to us in terms of a press release? Now you guys have a little bit of a better information about what the news stories say about inflation and where it is being gathered from.